Hello, chefs. This is Chef's PSA Podcast. I'm your host, André Natera. My guest today is my friend Mathew Peters. He's the first American to ever win the Bocuse d'Or, the prestigious culinary competition held in Lyon, France, named after the legendary chef Paul Bocuse. We're going to talk about that competition, the importance of culinary technique, and definitely some tips on how to be better in the kitchen. I think you'll enjoy this one. Stay tuned. This episode of Chef's PSA is brought to you by Foods in Season. Spring is here, so it's time to bring in the heavy hitters. Think ramps, fiddlehead ferns, fresh morels, dayboat halibut, and the Wagyu of salmon, wild Columbia River king salmon. No farmed fish here ever. Just wild, just premium, just in season. If you care about quality, this is where it starts. I've been using Foods in Season for years. They always deliver. Trusted by top chefs for wild foraged and seasonal goods. You get a dedicated rep, sustainable sourcing, and overnight delivery across the country. Order today, have it on your line tomorrow. Visit foodsinseason.com and mention Chef's PSA to get free shipping plus a sample box on your first order. Man, it's been a long time. I have to say, you don't know this, but you are the number one most requested guest I get for people to get on the show. A lot of people like, when are you going to get Matt Peters on? I'm like, fuck, you got to ask Matt. I don't know.
I mean, flattered. It's great. I know there's, partly is kind of like, where is he at? What's he doing? Type kind of requests in some form of fashion. So, for me, it's, just trying to find time with a busy schedule.
Yeah, you just came back from Lyon. I mean, not just came back, but what, 2 months ago? A month ago?
Yeah, about 2 months ago.
For people that don't know, can you kind of tell people, obviously you won the Bocuse d'Or, first American to ever win it, legendary status for that. Mm-hmm. But what is your current role with Bocuse? Can you explain kind of what the competition is and how you tie into that?
Yeah, so things have transitioned lately, and probably for a good long-term projection for Bocuse d'Or, but now I'm on the World Committee Board, so it's getting deeper into the roots of Bocuse d'Or and trying to find ways to modernize the competition, as well as kind of just diversify it a little bit in terms of breaking it out open across the world and really representing different countries. And it's not just myself, so there's representatives from all countries that are going to have a seat at the table, not just majority of the French IOC, was they call themselves the International Committee Board. So this way we can really start to involve more of the historical, cultural components of food from these different areas and bring them to light in the competition. Help it kind of make it more, I don't know how you would make it more competitive, as well as representative of their own countries and the competition. So, and I think that's kind of one of the goals that Paul Bocuse had, right? It was not only to teach the French food and cuisine, but also to bring other cultures and other cuisines to the table, to learn, to educate, and hopefully, find a new way of cooking in some form.
So for people that don't know what the competition is, can you kind of give an overview of what the competition looks like?
Yeah, so the competition is it's adjusted throughout the years. I mean, every 2 years the competition is held. There's lead up competitions that are similar format that get broken down over that 2 year process. So every other year there will be a large or smaller competitions that are held in different countries, so that it takes the approximately top 64 countries, and breaks it down to the top 24, kind of like Olympic trials, if you will. And so each country would have, a competition that would help that process along. The Americas will have one, and then you have one in Europe, and then you have one in South Asia, South America. South America. But all these will eventually come together through that breakdown process of competitions. and then they will all go to Bocuse d'Or, which the final competition, which will be held in Lyon, France. There you have to do this competition, which is in 5.5 hours.
Yeah.
Again, it's changed over the years. Every single year they try to throw a twist to the plot, but it's typically done with a plated first dish, which is, again, has to be some sort of dish that's representative of the country, that feeds 14 or 12 of some of the top chefs in the world. And then you have a platter that also feeds another 12 top chefs of the world on the other side, so 24 in total. One chef of every single country that's representative there in Lyon. And between those two, the plated dish and the platter, whoever is kind of rated as the top within those two circles is crowned the gold medal winner at the end.
So what does the team look like? So obviously you have the competitor, they have a commis.
Mm-hmm.
What is the entire team at the day of the event? Not getting there, because I'm sure there's hundreds, or maybe not hundreds, but there's a lot of people involved getting there. But day of competition, what does the team look like?
Yeah, so it's the chef, the head chef, who's kind of picked through those trials, right? And that chef is picked to be the representative of that country. So in like 2017, that was myself. And then there's a commis that has to be under the age of 21 at the time of the competition. So there is a little bit of a wiggle room. I think it's like, he can be like 21 years old and 11 months, and it still kind of justifies as being 21. Mm-hmm. But it can't be over. And so that, again, it's kind of the ultimate test of a chef, of mentoring a young cook that's coming up through the ranks, and kind of, hopefully also is kind of transitioning, hope that this young competitor will compete down the road as well. But it's that gentleman, and then there's a coach that is also representative, and that coach is kind of like the air traffic controller throughout the competition. So as you kind of build your run and your timing, that coach is there to kind of help you keep track and course of what may or may not happen. And then there's a small team that's involved around them. So there's, for us, we have the Mentor Foundation. The Mentor Foundation also is a support structure of chefs and also other foodies, if you will, that contribute their time and their tastes and their ideas to the competition, which make up, there's a ton of chefs that usually come out on board. And then we usually position ourselves with a chef board, a structure that's on the outside of that too, which could be up to 5 or 6 immediate chefs that kind of help influence some of the process. And then there's even a smaller team that's there to kind of help support the individual team. So, even myself, I had a kind of a project manager, if you will, that would do a lot of documentation through our testing and trials. And the same thing for our commis, which was Harrison Turon at the time. He had a direct manager that kind of helped him through his process. So from documentation of the runs and just kind of giving them updates throughout, some of our trials. And then from there, we had 2 to 3 other young cooks, upcoming cooks that wanted to learn the competition, but also give the opportunity to help us prep and stage everything along through that journey. So there is a decent team that's built around it, but they usually don't come on board until the last 5 to 6 months of the competition run, because that's when the bulk of the work is usually held.
And when you say the day of the competition, you have the coach, you have the commis, you have the competitor, but you also get a student, right?
Yeah. So there is a student that comes. It's a wild card student. You don't know how much work they've done. You don't know what language they talk. I mean, when we were there in Lyon, they were very heavily French spoken, and so the English was a barrier that we had to overcome. But we kind of known that walking in the door anyway.
Was your commis or your student French?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Didn't speak any English.
They said he did, but
so what do you
TBD.
What do you tell them to do if you can't communicate with them? Because how How soon do you find out who your student is before the competition starts?
You don't know. Well, so we were on day 2. And we knew who our commis was from day 1. So we actually got to see him perform before, so we can kind of like assess kind of how we wanted to approach, our day with it. But you typically don't find out until about an hour before you enter the box. Which is difficult. So you don't know. You just have to build your run. You have to build your systems. You have to have manuals, both in French and in English, just so that if they need to go back and revert to something while you're in the middle of your run, they can kind of read through the process real quickly. But also, you're not giving them challenging tasks. I mean, it's really keeping things clean, keeping things organized, and then they're doing kind of the commis work, if you will, of cooking. So it's like chopping chives and herbs and cutting vegetables for sauces and stuff like that.
Got it. When you're planning for your own competition, and maybe your competition plan was different from most recent with Stephanie's, but in general, how do you split up the work? Like, what are you taking on as the competitor, and what are you giving to your commis, your assistant, the 21-year-old?
Was the 20? I mean, we try to give them as much as possible.
Yeah.
So the goal for us is, dump as much work on him as you can possibly, he or she, whoever is in my case, it was as Harrison, but the goal was to dump as much work onto him as possible, and to alleviate, because then I knew if I needed to come back to it, I can lift him up and take on those responsibilities. But that's the goal of like being the chef, right? You want to be able to have that image of control, right? And you need to have that ability of control, but also so I can focus on the really detail work, the really kind of the harder pieces, and if you will, like the processing of the main protein, handling majority of like these artful crafts that we kind of did and the detail work on the garnishes. So, you want to be able to kind of give yourself that room in those minutes in the run to be able to kind of put out any fires, that may arise. Sorry, but that's the goal, right? And so we kind of built our run, and it pushes the commis to be, the better, the better cook in the kitchen.
You talked about having, when I joked around earlier, I said hundreds of people. I mean, sometimes it is, right? Give or take a few 10 that are involved, everything from the people that are designing the platter to the people that are showing up and coaching, to the people that are walking you through and giving you feedback, to raising money, sponsors and all that. There's a lot of people involved, but these are some of in the United States at least, these are probably some of the, if not the biggest names in the culinary world that come together to support the competitor, to support the organization, and to represent the United States. Why do you think that is? Because obviously that wasn't the case 10 years ago.
Well, I think partly is the chefs at the top, right? That kind of brought it all together. So, it's kind of the age-old question or situation of, if chef asks, you say, we chef, you go in, you dive in, you do it. And, it started with, Paul Bocuse, reached out directly to Thomas, Keller to say, well, actually, I think it was a combination of Thomas and Danielle Boulud, and Danielle Boulud, being good friends with Thomas, was like, you need to do this, not just for, the U.S., but also for Paul, because Paul wanted to see the competition grow within the United States. And, he had a full belief that we had untapped talent that just wasn't being represented in the competition, and who was better at that time to kind of bring that culinary force to the table. So Thomas did, like any other chef respecting another chef, is saying yes, and, and he's like, I would take on this task, and I think that kind of redirected the position of where we were, and kind of brought other chefs to the table too, and said, hey, we have something that I think that we could be really great at, and let's bring our resources together and see what we can do.
It's funny, you talk about Thomas getting a call from Paul Bocuse. Sometimes when my phone rings, and it's like a big chef, I'm like, fuck, I kind of don't want to answer it because I know they're not calling to see how I'm doing, right? They're never, if it's a big chef and they're calling me, I'm like, damn it, what did I do? Or what do they need me to do, right? Like,
What did I say?
Yeah, what did I say? Am I in trouble? Did they listen to an episode? And I'm like, fuck, my heart drops. But it's funny that you say that because, when they walk in, it doesn't matter what I've done in my career. I'm setting up the cutting board for them, folding their towels. Here's your knife, chef. Would you like some coffee?
Absolutely. It's hospitality.
Right? It's their chef. But it's funny how you say it when, Thomas answers the phone to Paul Bocuse. Yes, chef. Yeah. We chef. How may I help you?
I mean, it's the ultimate sign of respect, right? And I think, when you're talking to somebody who's devoted their life to this craft and somebody that's highly respected and has transcended, culinary cuisine, French cuisine in the United States is the way that he has. And, I just think, it's just due.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty incredible to see all the chefs that come together, the amount of resources that come together just to see one competitor go compete. And for people that have never been to the competition, can you describe what it's like?
Yeah, I mean, some of it's blacked out, but no, it's the competition itself. Even it's different when you're a competitor going in than it is when you're a viewer, right?
So what does the viewer see first?
The viewer sees it's just
like NASCAR.
Not in the scale of NASCAR. NASCAR.
I mean, it's loud.
There's not less rat tails and number 8 tattoos, but no, I think the competition. Think of more of like a smaller version of going to a European soccer match.
Okay.
Right. I mean, the fan base is very much loud, and it's if you ever seen like the Japanese like baseball games, and they got I don't even know what you call them, the little hammers and thumpers or whatever it is, and it's just like you're trying to make as much noise as possible. I mean, you got a full scale band that's playing for Team Europe, and they're trying to distract and annoy the other competitors, even trying to a point where there's some sort of translation loss between and kind of create some frantic moments is the goal. So if you ever see and I've posted pictures, and it's just the buzz and the excitement in the air of all these different countries that are all sitting in the stands. It's just
who brings
another
the biggest
world.
fan base?
France.
Yeah, obviously.
Being there, being there, and so they're always a battle. So but then following from that, most of the Nordic countries they come in deep because they can travel very quickly there. So Denmark, Norway, Sweden always travel very well.
France won the most recent one.
France won the most recent one, and which was a beautiful story because that Regis Marcon, who was the president of Bocuse d'Or, stepped down because his son competed this past year for Team France.
Yeah.
And this, I think this was like the 30th anniversary or something, or maybe I can't remember off the top of my head, so I'm probably saying this wrong, so sorry. But since the last time Regis won. So Regis won 30 years ago, or whatever it was, and he won gold, and then now his son came out to compete and then took home gold on his 30th anniversary. So yeah, it's just a beautiful story in terms of that, and just to see Regis see his son succeed, the emotions were pouring.
You were talking about earlier, so the competitor has to make the individual plate and the platter, and then you said how many judges?
So it's a judge per country that's representative in the competition. So 24 all day. You do have the last competitor who won from the previous cycle comes back as the honorary president, and then you also have another honorary president that's usually a top chef,
right?
That's
and the judges are also the who's who legends.
Yeah, absolutely. Thomas was a judge back in the day. Then Gavin Kaysen took over as the president of Bocuse d'Or USA. So this the president of every single country then is represented there on the table.
What are they looking for?
I mean, it comes down to flavor, right? So
I know you've said that to me, many times, but I feel like a lot of people don't hear you say that.
I
to
know.
them.
Well, and exactly. So, because you see this beautiful stuff, and you're like, how does that even taste good? You know, and I think there's this association with the competition where it's like the food is so pretty that it can't taste that good.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the opposite. Now, yes, there are pretty food that just doesn't taste that great, right? I mean, we've all seen it, we've all eaten it, and we've all been.
I still do it.
It's like, it's like aesthetic, component of it is far. It brings the eye in, it brings the mind trick, right? And I think that's kind of the component of it. So, but you always got to hide that flavor. You shouldn't say hide it, but you kind of have to tuck it in there to make sure that it's still doing the job of what you're set out to do as a chef, and that's to make the best tasting food that you possibly can. And and even the way that we judge our competitions internally is like we pick the chef that cooks the best.
Right.
Hands down. And then it's just like the technique and things that we build in and around it, the aesthetic component of it.
Yeah.
That can be taught. That can be brought in. That can be,
it could be coached.
It can be coached. It can
right.
be evolved, throughout that process. So we really like trying to teach somebody flavors in a good cooking takes much longer. Right. And you gotta feel that the soul of the chef inside there. So that's kind of the base that we kind of position off of. And it's the same way that the competition's judged too. I mean, it's like, do you taste the individual in this dish? Do you taste their country, the heart and soul of the individual in there? So
this year, what was it? Because there was a couple of curveballs this year, right?
Yeah, there's a ton.
We're
trying to roll that back.
What were some of the new rules that were added this year? And then what was the, because this year was more about return to cooking, right?
Yeah, I mean, they've always been trying to do that. I think that's kind of the traditional
cook meat on the bone,
French,
right?
Cuisine is kind of like, bring it back. Like, I mean, again, like, and I think it helps the conversation that we're having right now, right? Is it so aesthetically pleasing that it doesn't taste good anymore, right? And I think we were stretching. I mean, the tuile games are always high because it's like the newfound love, and it does. It looks beautiful, but I mean, again, it's just a flavorless flour tuile with water, or egg or whatever. And so the appeal of that, you can always have an element of it, but they're always trying to say, okay, even sous vide cooking. Like, I mean, there were so many people that, I mean, you were just tasting these very slow cooked, mousses and very, soft textured meats that, were looking beautifully and that had multiple different layers of whatever built inside of it. But it's like, nothing tastes better than just a grill or heavily roasted piece of meat, right? With a perfect crust on top of it. And it's like, that tastes better than having a piece of poached beef. I mean, I think we can all attest to that.
Yeah, let's be honest.
No matter how many layers of beauty and you wonder how did they get that marbling inside of it, it's, at the end of the day, I'd rather eat a grilled piece of steak than having this poached, lamb loin with, a farce around it.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, you're right.
It's the truth. So then they're like, okay, well, if we put a rule that's taking that away, then hopefully they'll try to find a new creative way, even though you can't grill in the competition. How do you establish that flavor back into the protein in their products?
Well, it's funny you're talking about the tuile and how much, and I'm not even talking about the competition anymore. I'm just talking about real life restaurants. How many restaurants are spending so much time on the tuile and less time on getting a crust on steak?
Those molds aren't cheap.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, quit messing with the tuile.
Yeah.
And make sure the steak is cooked right.
And I think that's, and what's great, and I think a lot of Nordic cuisine like Noma and stuff, even though they do a lot of tuile making now too, but in a different form of fashion. But I think the purest and the natural kind of, just the simplicity of a perfectly cooked piece of sauté, like spinach leaf that just drapes over top of your piece of fish, and you have a, made sauce that's not knowing that sauce took maybe 3 or 4 days to make, plus depending on what kind of fermentation and process that you put into that sauce too. But it's like, I think simplicity came back at some point, but it also then went quickly into another direction of, overcomplicating it.
Yeah, I mean, but social media doesn't help.
No, and I think social media is completely Drew, because you want the prettiest thing out there, right? And everything you do and everything in life is like, that's half the reason why you make majority of your purchases.
It's I like
pretty.
to say it's chef thirst traps.
Yeah.
That's what they are. They're chef thirst traps.
But you also have to recognize, and you got to play into it too.
Yeah.
But within reason and balance, and I think that's the way the competition works too. You're always trying to find that balance between the aesthetics of the competition as well as the flavor of the competition. So it's just, you need there is a balance there. There is a ratio that I think works, and we're always trying to figure out what items need to lean more into flavor and what needs to be more aesthetic, and then we kind of make sure that everything kind of has its role in the competition.
Thinking about food trends and flavor and all that with Bocuse, but also just restaurants in general, kind of segueing into that a little bit. Why do you think the Nordic countries are doing so well? Not just in the with restaurants like Noma and everything that's coming out of Copenhagen and just that whole area, but also in the competition. What is it that they got going on that, I mean, seem to catch most people by surprise over the last few years?
I mean, we get to look at it from our perspective. It's new and it's different, right?
Yep.
And that's, I mean, just like everything, you see it's like growing up and you have a girlfriend and you see another girl walks by that's a little prettier. You're like, oh man, what's that?
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing in food and restaurants, right? You're always looking for the new pretty one, right? And then it's like, what are they doing? What are, oh, that's different. That's, I want to go try that. I want to go do that. And so, I think, the Nordic country and Noma has really kind of blown it up, and it's different. And, when it's new and it's different, it's interesting, and you want to learn about it. You want to know more about it. You want to try it. You want to taste it. You want to so I feel like, it's kind of fits in that same realm of conversation, because we can have what we do here all the time. Right. But we can't have that all the time. So when we see it, it's much different. But also, I think they're executing, I think in terms of the competition, they found a formula that worked really well. Right. And the technique and the design of what they do is really beautiful. And they just kept refining it. Yeah. I think from our perspective and what we need to do, from the U.S. side of things is we need to go back to what was successful, and we need to refine that process. Yeah. Rather than starting fresh. I almost feel like most of the chefs that come on, it's just they want to put their own stamp and approval and an identity to it. And I'm not saying that you can't do that. It's just trying to not lose focus of what was already successful and kind of building upon that success. And I think that's what, these Nordic countries do. If you look at it, it's like most of that food was built by Rasmus and was continued to work, through a lot of Rasmus technique. And you just see it now slowly evolving into maybe the next generation of Denmark and Norway and these other countries. But it's they have a refined touch and this kind of feminine beauty in their food that I think, shines in the competition.
Let me think. I wanted to ask this. Not necessarily regarding the competition, but regarding some of the way food is now, but also kind of where it comes from. You look at chefs like Thomas or Rene or Ferran or Bocuse, and then a lot of food is just derivatives of what they've done. Yeah. Right. And there's a lot of other chefs on that list too. So I'm just naming a few. But people are cooking, when the French Laundry cookbook came out, a lot of people were doing that. A lot of people started doing what Ferran was doing when Grant was doing what he was doing. A lot of people started to do exact copies of Alinea or cooking straight out of the Noma cookbook and put it on their menu. And we didn't have Instagram back then to keep people honest. But I feel like now, with that, everything starts to kind of look the same, right? It looks like a derivative of maybe these 10 chefs. Yeah. But if you look at, a cornet with some tartare in it, that goes to French Laundry. Right. It doesn't matter. You could trace it right back. And unfortunately, I think now, you don't see much that's original, but it doesn't mean that original is not out there percolating and bubbling up somewhere, that we just haven't seen it. And then when we see it, it's hard to trace where it came from, because chef's going to copy, chef's going to copy, chef's going to copy. And before you know it, it's like, where did that originate? I don't know.
Yeah.
But my question is, after that little bit of a rant, my question to you is, seeing Bocuse, because you're seeing the highest level of techniques, being in Europe during that time, and then you're going to eat at these restaurants, what do you see percolating in the food trend that's going to trickle into the kitchens and the restaurants of the chefs that isn't really being talked about today, but you kind of see it coming in the next few months or the next few years?
I mean, that's such a hard question, to be honest with you. It's just like, even, I think everybody tries to anticipate some trends, and kind of like what you see. I think you're seeing more, it's kind of like a two-part kind of answer to some degree, but you're definitely seeing a lot of more popular chefs, those who may have been into fine dining, kind of step into it. I mean, even I'm looking at different things as well, because it's a business, right? And I think there's a focal point on what is the next business for your restaurants that still allows you to be creative and keep the fine dining component of what your love and enjoy is, if that's like where your love and joy is. So you start to see a lot of that, dip into more fast casual components and styles. But in my mind, I think what I'm starting to see is fine dining become a little bit more approachable. Right? Fine dining isn't necessarily just associated with a tasting menu format. It's more like, how do we bring those fine dining elements into a more a la carte menu format, whether it's a very sexy steakhouse, or if it's like the Carbone gentlemen that did, Carbone and, different parts of that, which is like, the Miami version, is a very much of what I'm talking about. It's kind of like these sexy, like, spaces with beautiful, the same style of service pieces and things that you would have in a fine dining restaurant that might be associated with the French Laundry or some of these other places, now become these beautiful kind of more casualized restaurants where you feel like they're everyday kind of eateries. When I say everyday, it's still a high price point, but it's the way that I think, the way that people are wanting to eat, and I think that comes to timing, right? Those 3 to 4 hour meals are kind of being lost.
Yeah.
I think people want to get in, have their 2.5 hours, and then they want to go to the next thing, right? Whether it's a cocktail lounge, or if maybe it's another small bite that they've had on their bucket list, or maybe it's another place to have dessert. And so I feel like, if I had to say, if there's like a trend, I think like things are starting to kind of work themselves, at least here in the States. You start to see a little bit of that. But from a food perspective, that's a hard one to say. I can't put a finger on saying, okay, this is what the next 5 to 10 years is going to look like from a cuisine or a specific chef's cuisine.
What about like cooking methods?
Cooking methods, I think it's going to stay strong in the way it is. I think it's going to be a lot more of this. I think the hearth cooking and open fire, but I think it's going to be, a little bit more leveled, right? I think you're seeing more vegetables getting brought into your food, and less of the meats and proteins. I think that's always going to be a kind of a position, because I think it also helps drive down costs.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think from a business perspective, as proteins start to continue to rise, I mean, you're going to have to find that fluff to kind of compensate for those rising costs. So I think chefs are going to get more creative with the way that they represent their vegetables, and I think that's going to be kind of a price position that's going to help them, from a business perspective.
Yeah, from a business perspective, I have my own opinions, and I share a lot of my opinions. They're not all right for people listening. Like I'm not always right.
This is why you get those chefs calling you up, like, Andre, what are you talking about?
Yeah, you're hurting my business over here. But I agree with you. It's like 2.5 hours, 2 hours seems to be like, okay, that if I was building something out, I would say, okay, that's about right. I think if you're getting longer than that, you could maybe turn more tables at 2 hours.
Sure.
I think maybe 5 courses, if you're doing that, might be the sweet spot, 5 to 6, maybe 7. Because you could now get away with fewer cooks in the kitchen. You don't need as many.
Yeah.
And maybe lower the food costs. You don't have as much inventory. And then obviously a good cocktail program.
Yeah.
A little bit louder music, a little bit more fun. Like if I was designing a restaurant, that's kind of where my head would be. And of course that might change based on the next guest giving me a good idea or the next off the record conversation. But I do agree with everything that you said. I think the modern day attention span is different for the diners. I know when I go out to eat, unless the conversation is very good, I know about 2 courses in, I'm taking out my phone and I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody's jumping on social, and even if you don't mean to, you take a picture and all of a sudden you have like 3 more messages, and then next thing you know, you dove right back in.
Yeah.
And then your mind's now concentrated on the phone rather than, and maybe that's the future goal is like no cell phones inside of a specific restaurant.
Yeah.
Kind of keep, which I think is going to be really hard to play, but
yeah, that actually might.
I know there's cocktail lounges and bars. I mean, specifically even here in Austin that require that deal, because I mean it is disruptive. I mean, you watch. I mean, one of my favorite bands, Tool. They don't allow you to have your cell phones, right? And a lot of these comedy shows for obvious reasons, right? But it's just like a distraction. Mm-hmm. Like you're there to enjoy what you came out there to enjoy, which was either the music or the food or the person across from you. It's just like I think sometimes we get distracted by this extension of our bodies at this point now, which is his phone that distracts you from the experience that you're supposed to set out to go enjoy.
How much do you think like the theater aspect? And when I say theater, I mean like tableside presentation, shaving the truffles, or here comes the cheese gueridon, whatever, right? How much do you think that plays a factor into the overall dining experience?
I think it's huge. There's some future concepts that we have in the works that that I want to implement this in, and it's just everything. I mean, you see it in clothing and food the same way. It's like, what we did 20 years ago is now the hot thing. And, I feel like it goes on rotation every single year. So,
because people haven't seen it in 15 years.
Exactly. And they're like, hey, it's new again. And there's a whole new generation of diners that are now in their 20s and 30s that never even know what this was, right? They were like 6 when, all this tableside service was like happening. And then now they're, 26 and they're like, wow, this is amazing. It's like, where was this 5 years ago, 10 years ago? So, I think, you look at it both at that, but then there's just like this, nostalgic moment for those who once had it. And they're like, oh, look, I remember getting this at this restaurant when you and I first met, blah, blah, blah. And God knows where, but it's bringing back memories, right? It's kind of that memorable cooking that even like Thomas, was most famous for, even with his cuisine. It's like, the same at Cornet was like bringing back childhood memories of eating an ice cream cone type situation. So it's like you need to play on those heartstrings, and I think tableside service it's a theatric, but it's still good cooking if it's done well, right? Dave Barron's doing those. You see a lot of those duck a la presse.
I love watching the videos
and
for no reason.
It.
Just
exactly.
like I'll sit there and watch a 3-minute video of him pressing a duck after I've seen him already do that.
And it's kind of a technique that you're just curious, just like why are you doing this? Like what do you get off of this? And it's an educational process along the way. Caesar salads, doing tablesides, like you get to see the ingredients that actually go into a Caesar salad. I guarantee you ask 90% of your diners, and they were like, "What's in the Caesar salad dressing?" And they're like, "I don't know." Egg,
ranch,
Parmesan, ranch,
Chipotles,
mayonnaise with powder. What is So there's a great component of the two of those that I think come together on that, and I think finding. Using that as finding new creative ways to bring in tableside service, I think is going to be a hot new trend too. Because I think that it's not just bringing out a dish and dropping and explaining, why fermentation took 28 hours or whatever it was, plus the days. And then it's more of like, hey, we're coming out here, we're showing you that we're cooking directly at your table, right? It's kind of like that personalized, personal chef component to it, where it's just like, it's that VIP moment that you have at the table.
One of the first restaurants I worked at was like, I think like 30 or 40% of the menu was all table side. I loved it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Cause the server's like, here's your prep.
Yeah.
Here are your eggs and your whatever.
But also speed size. Yeah. I mean, think about service. I mean, cooking, I remember doing Dover soles and just like, oh, here, we're going to do the Dover sole table side. I'm like, great, love that dish. You sear out the Dover sole.
Yeah.
You're right. You flour it, you bread it, you pick up your sauce back in the pan, you pour it in the little saucier on the side, and you just like send it. Yeah. And you're like, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to break it down. You don't have to worry about the perfect cut. You don't have to worry about the plate up. It's like you put that thing in that chafing dish or whatever it was.
So today I was watching someone on Instagram cooking a Dover sole. And again, it's funny that you bring this up and we're talking about this because I was sipping my coffee before we recorded, and I found myself watching that Dover sole video like 5 times for no reason. I was watching, then it'd loop again. I watch it again. I was like, I just enjoyed watching it.
Yeah.
And then like, that's what
you probably shit talked it a little bit too.
Like, no, I did. It was done well. I was like, man, it made me want to go buy a Dover sole because I missed that. Like the simple, it's good. Like I no bells and whistles, no, no bullshit on the plate. I love
it. But seeing the entire, like, again, it's this wow factor. It's like getting a tomahawk chop, you know what I mean, or a bone-in ribeye. It's like there's just something grand about getting it whole, and it feels like you're getting more value for the price point that you're spending on it. But then it's a conversation piece. It's a shareable item at the table, right? You're breaking bread kind of situation with, the guests at the table. You can even, like, for us, like, I love the way where, like, you carve it and you're serving each other, right? It's interaction. It brings things away from this and brings it back into this conversation piece at the table, and enjoying company, right? And I think that's, that table side service stops that and brings that conversation piece back together again.
I had Junior on a couple of episodes ago. He was talking about, he's opening Nick and Junior's in Chicago, and he was talking about he's doing a little ice cream cone with ice cream. Yeah. And I was like, when was the last time you saw an ice cream cone with ice cream? Yeah. I thought it was cool. I was like, that feels new. Because sometimes I feel like we copy, and then all of a sudden it's like, if we served ice cream cone with an ice cream or a Dover sole or a Caesar salad table, it'd feel new. Yeah. Because we haven't done it in so long.
That's it. But it 100% agrees. And it's the right amount too. Because every time I see those damn ice cream cones are like this big, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to eat all that. So yeah, I think getting like a little bit of something like that, and that's still in that beautiful form that still brings you back to those memories as a child. I mean, those will never die.
Yeah. I want to talk about Prelude because congratulations on Prelude. How long has it been open now?
Almost a year.
Wow. So it's probably the most beautiful bar in all of Austin. For people that don't know, if you haven't gone, you should go to Prelude. It's my favorite place. I love it. I probably need to go like today or something. But it's great. The outdoor area, the art, the setting, the different floors. I honestly, can I tell people a story?
Sure.
Because you sent me a text one day, and I think it was maybe it was Lauren's birthday. And I said, "Oh, I can't go." I had something going on. I couldn't go to her birthday. And then you're like, "Come meet me at the bar." And I was like, "What bar are you talking about?" I didn't know what you were talking about. You sent me a photo, and you're like, "Meet me here." I was like, "What is this? Is this like?" I thought it was your new house. I was like, "Did you move? Is this your new house?"
I could live there.
Yeah, beautiful, right? And you're like, "No, come see it. You'll understand when you get here." Yeah. And I remember I got there, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, it is beautiful. The amount of art that's in there, the different floors, the different rooms. It is the coolest. Honestly, it's probably the coolest space in Austin. It's probably one of the coolest spots in the country. I'm just trying to think who's cooler, and I can't think of anyone right away. But it's stunning.
Yeah.
So how did that come to be?
Yeah, it was so. I mean, just like everything, when we moved down here to Austin, I was always trying to find a space or a building that brought some history of Austin that had a connection to old Austin, and it so that we can kind of bring our new approach to the city, right, in that evolutionary process. But it's just Austin doesn't have a ton of old spaces, right, or they're in these homes that are historically landmarked and or that are owned by some sort of lawyer firm that's never going to go anywhere, or they're too big and they're making them into some sort of office space, right? Something that's, more money than a typical restaurant would kind of make. So, for years, we were looking at a property, just didn't work out. There was some budget situations, but okay, we move on to the next location. And it was like, okay, well, maybe we'll do something a little bit more casual, and we'll find a building downtown that we can kind of pop into. Maybe it's not the long-term, like, fine dining dream that I want to, but let's just get the ball rolling. And then the pandemic happened, and then we're like, shit, okay, well, put a pause on this and see what happens. And then, thankfully so, because if we would have opened up a restaurant at that time, we probably would have just shut it down anyway and had to restart. And then through the process of conversations with different people, I came across my current partner now, who does a lot of real estate. And this house was on the property, and we kind of looked at it at the beginning, and the whole back lawn wasn't done. It was like a gravel pit. Didn't really understand like the how much of the property was part of the house and not, and they were trying to figure out with another tenant, which was the Here Nor There group. They were looking at it. They did a pop-up there like 3 years ago. And so the bar was already established in the house. They already did the ground floor, just the first floor. And I went in there with my partner at the time, and we were like, I love this. This is great. It's like, well, we want to bring in some sort of food component. Like, can you walk the space and try to figure out where this kitchen and things are going to work? I'm like, man, this is not like, you're going to have to eat up too much of the space. You're not going to have room for a kitchen, and you're not going to have room for, the bar and all these other things. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, this house is a little complicated for that. Not knowing about the back lawn. So then David went through, and then my partner's name, continued to build out the space and did this whole back lawn. And he goes, so we started looking at another location downtown, and it didn't really work out. He goes, well, come back to the house. Just come back and look at it, because the Here Nor There guys dropped it and they went to go do something in Houston. And so we'll walk back to the space, and this whole back lawn is built out. And I'm like, what is this? I was like, I didn't know this existed with the house. And he goes, oh yeah, no, the whole back lawn, we filled it all in. And I'm like, David, this is amazing. And I was like, what do I need to do to take this? Because then the vision started to come through. Instead of the kitchen being inside the house, we wanted to extend it off the back end. And now I've seen this real estate that we could play off of with this garden, as quote unquote, the garden as we refer to, or the back lawn. That's where I saw the kitchen being. And I was like, let me take this over. And we'll continue to build it out. We'll continue to evolve it into our kind of brand. And this could be the prelude to what we want to do down the road. And that's where the name came from. And that's kind of the idea of this first iteration of the project. And I've always wanted to have a cocktail bar, not for the sake of just to get drunk, but just like a place to go, but to go to enjoy like a good classy cocktail. Like, and when you think about the city, most places you either have to go to a hotel, right? Or you have to go to some sort of like speakeasy that has some, trick to the trade that you have to get in on, right? And I was like, can't you just get a classy space where, you want to go and enjoy and have one or two cocktails and a couple small bites? Like, there's just nothing really like that. And so that was what I wanted to build there, and we continue to want that Prelude to exist post once we actually get the kitchen up and operational. But yeah, I mean,
the space is amazing.
Yeah.
The art in there is incredible. What's the backstory behind it? And for people that are listening, I'll put up images, so if they're watching on YouTube or Spotify, they could see some of the images of the art.
Yeah, well, we were trying to figure out how, we brought a lot of nice furniture in, and we didn't use any designers or anything. So my wife and my partner's wife, they kind of did everything inside of it, which is great.
That looks great.
We did it quickly too. I mean, we took over the space in 2020 2024 in December of 2023. We started the process in January. We got it up and operational by May.
Wow.
And so it was very quick in terms of the process that we did it. But I mean, that was the goal, right? Just to get it up and operational in the first phase that we wanted it. And then let that grow and then continue to work out the architectural design of the second phase. And while we kind of did this first phase. But yeah, so we were trying to figure out, okay, well, we need to have some art in here. We need something on the walls instead of getting a bunch of random stuff off of Etsy, which just didn't really fit the vibe or match the space. And we just get like this splatter paint. And then we were like, well, maybe we should just do our own art pieces. And it was like, no, I'm not that good. And I don't have time for this. And so we were walking, we went to an event at the West Chelsea art museum downtown, and this modern art museum, and that's my type of art. I love the combination of street arts and just this like kind of modern approach. And we started having conversations. We just kind of opened the conversation of like, hey, do you guys do collabs? And we would be very interested in having you guys in if we can put some of these art pieces up, and then it could be like a sale too for those guests that are coming in. I mean, we're hoping that might be the type of demographic that may be interested in it, but also just kind of like it would work really well within the space. Give us that modern kind of like edginess and technique within a house that's like was built back in 1889. So we wanted to kind of tell the story of who we were and where we were going within the space, and find something that's fun, right? And I feel like that modern art approach. So, I mean, we had some brainwashes in there, Risk from LA, which is a great combination. We have a photographer, Trox, who's good friends with him, and both fantastic artists. And it's just really great people. We had Gary James McQueen, which is the nephew of Alexander McQueen. He's just some of these up and coming modern artists that are really breaking away. But he did their first American showing here in Austin, Texas, and we did the party for him at the house, and we have a beautiful Simon Berger, which is like this cracked glass component in the foyer there, and it's just we kind of, and even some local artists that come through. It's always on rotation, right? And so we're always trying to find different pieces and start to tell a story through the process. So we're working with the West Chelsea Art Museum down there to kind of collaborate with different things. And
WCC.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, they do fantastic, work with us, and there's plenty of other things that are going to come down in the pipeline where we're going to work collectively on doing different shows at the house as well as with them there on site. So we're excited.
So just kind of going into advice, because you've given me some really good advice. People that may not know, you've helped me out tremendously on 2 different occasions.
Just 2.
Well, I mean, two that I've talked about a lot.
Two is more than I thought you were going to say.
A lot of little ones, but
maybe
2 big
one.
ones. No, 2 big ones. So the first one was when I was opening up the Fairmont Austin Hotel. It's a 1,000-room hotel, and I wanted to run it very strict. You had just one Bocuse, and we were having a conversation, and I remember asking. I wrote about this in my Culinary Leadership Fundamentals book. There's a section that I wrote. I don't know if I called you out by name in the book, but I wrote about this conversation. I said, how do I scale the intensity and professionalism and the attention to detail to 300 people?
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems like it's one thing to tell one person, but 300, how do I get them all to drink the Kool-Aid exactly? And you gave me the best advice, and I wrote about this in the book, and you said, you don't need to convince everyone. Just convince your 4 or 5 direct reports. They convince their 4 or 5, and then it scales that way. As long as you could convince the ones that directly report to you and teach them how to scale it, it makes it easy. So don't think of it. And I was like, yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah. And so that's what I did, and it worked. And I would say it was a very tight, well-run machine. That was some of the best advice you've ever given me. The second piece of advice that you gave me was when I was starting Chef's PSA, and I was kind of like going into at the beginning phases of it. We were having a conversation, and he said, "Why don't you just film your stupid beard and just like talking shit and just see what happens?"
It's a great beard.
Thank you. And I was like, "Yeah, I should." And you're like, "Yeah, just do it. Just say some stupid shit, put it on the internet, and see what happens. See where it goes." And so I did. And I remember the very first video that I did, and I'll clip it in here. Maybe I'll clip it in here where I'm driving and I'm talking shit. And I think I'm talking about, I tried to find like the most controversial thing I could say at that time. And it was Renee had just put out his vegetables book. He had a reindeer peanut salad. And I said, you know, it's dangerous.
Did you ever eat that, by the way?
No.
You need to go and figure out how to get that dish.
No, I'm not going to ever eat it. but I said on the videos, like, you know, Renee, take that out of your book because, you know, every sous chef across the country is going to be putting reindeer peanut salad on the menu. And I made it, and I sent you the videos like, what do you think? You're like, yeah, do it, post it. And that is kind of what led to these other things with Chef's PSA. It was like I was already doing it, but like I just needed someone to like, yeah, do it. Just go for it. So thank you for that. People that don't know, like that was the beginning of the early cringe videos that I was doing. Like thanks to Matt Peters. If it wasn't for you telling me to put myself out there and say something stupid, I probably wouldn't have. So
you know, you always got to break the ice in some form of fashion. But no, pleasure.
Yeah, but since you gave me such good advice, if there was young cooks listening, and you said, "Look, start doing these things to become a better cook in the kitchen," what are some things that would help fix some of the bad habits that are out there?
I think you got to start with the mindset.
Yeah.
You know, I think for so much of it, you know, the chefs, they look at the social component of it, and they want to, you know, work on these techniques that are kind of beautiful. And, you know, it's like you need to understand what the business is and that it's a lot of hard work. And I think if you're devoted to the hard work and you're committed mentally to the hard work, then you're going to get there, right? And all of the little techniques and the things are going to come along the way. But it's just like, I think what ends up happening is, you know, there's a loss of focus where, you know, you can show up for 6 or 8 hours and somehow you're going to come out to be a top chef one day. It's like, yeah, you kind of have to mentally prepare yourself that there's going to be a long road and it's going to be a lot of work, no matter whether it's, if you say that's an old way of looking at things, it's like, I don't believe in that. I think anything in life comes with sacrifice and it comes with a lot of hard work, and you got to prepare yourself mentally for that. If that's truly what you want to do, you know what I mean? If you truly want to be some of the best, then you have to mentally prepare yourself that it's just like, I'm willing to work as long and as hard as I need to get to that part. And I think that's, you know, something to kind of keep in mind throughout the process. Something that for people listening, so for people that tell you greatness and success comes through hard work, if they're usually successful people that are saying that, but the people that tell you it's not about working hard and it's not about, you know, there's other ways to achieve greatness, I promise you, the people that they're not great, like they haven't accomplished it. Yeah. Anyone that's accomplished anything meaningful in their life or their career, they usually, you don't get lucky. And if you do get lucky, luck doesn't last long. And a lot of people get lucky. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't last long. It's like, and luck doesn't, there's always a little bit of luck in everything, right? No matter, it's like you need a little bit of luck to kind of break through eventually, right? But it's just like, but you have to find, you know, that luck is through that hard work. Yeah. And you're not going to find that luck unless you put in the hard work to get to that point, to kind of get it to the point where you need to be. And they say the harder I work, the luckier I get. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I love that saying. And it's still to this day, it's just like, I mean, I could sit back. You know, my timeline is like, yeah, I've accomplished a lot, but I haven't accomplished what I wanted yet. But the thing is, it's like, I could continue to say, well, it's like I did all this in the past. It's like, why am I not where I need to be today? It's just like, no, you got to continue to fight for that. Right. And I'm, you know, evident story of that, because it's like, you know, I wish that things were just handed to me based off of what I started, but it's not that way. You have to continue to work at it. You have to continue to find ways. You got to continue to learn. You got to continue to fight through some of the hard times. And, you know, eventually, you know, Prelude the house was kind of like a lucky situation. It kind of fell in my lap. So it's just like all that hard work is now finally starting to kind of pay off a little bit. And, you know, there's still a lot more hard work to be done, because you still got to build a profitable business. But, you know, there's, you know, it's just keep grinding.
Well, man, I feel like I had so many more questions. We could probably keep talking, but for people that are listening and they want to continue to follow you and your story and Prelude, where can people find you?
Social media.
Yeah, social media.
Chef Matt Peters, as well as, visit us on prelude-austin.com. If you're ever in Austin, stop by.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, man.
Appreciate
You're
it.
the most requested guest ever. We'll do this again.
Well, we're up to part 2 here.
Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed the show. You know what to do. Make sure you leave 5 stars if you're listening on Spotify or anywhere, really. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button. I'd completely revamped the Chef's PSA store, shop.chefspsa.com. My team added a ton of new items. I advise you to go check it out. Just peruse, look around. Maybe you see something nice that you like. Keep supporting the show. Go to chefspsa.com. You get books, obviously the merch, early access to episodes on Substack and Spotify for premium members. We'll see you next week. Hit the porno music.
No, it's André in the kitchen, mixing, dropping chef knowledge, no fiction, stirring up the beats, heating up the session. Listen close, classes in session.